Hello, it's January 14th, 2025, 2025. Got to create that habit.
Mhm.
Uh, I'm Joe Weston. That I got down. I've been saying that for many years. I'm Joe Weston, and we're here for our uh, monthly global heart gathering. And, and this is the first of the year of 2025. And some things I want to say about that. And it's just welcome. It's always an honor to have you here join in, to see familiar faces, people who have been involved with this community now for going on 8 years, maybe 7 or 8 years. Yeah, it's quite a while, and always good to see new faces and to have people join us actually at this time um, to on the World Wide Web to connect, and those who are with us who can't be on the World Wide Web who are with us in their hearts from around the world. And it is it's a pleasure to be able to meet in this way. For me, it's personally it fulfills a need, and at the same time, I'm hoping that's the case for others.
Mhm.
And it's also part of my more mission in what I want to contribute in the world, which is in a time where there's so much volatility and so much isolation and so much polarization and separation. Anything that I can do to create a space where people can come together, people who are complete strangers, literally, who come together on a monthly basis or just even once to resonate in heart space. If I can provide that, then I feel like I feel I'm satisfying an urge of mine and a motivation of mine, which is in alignment of my values and my practices. And every time we do meet, where people come, we start, and by the end, we're in heart resonance with each other. That it's just a testament that it's possible that in any circumstances, if we have the courage and the resilience and the fierce compassion, that in almost any situation where people really want to engage, that we can come in heart resonance and work through and cut through the labels we have and the ways that we create separation, and remember that deep down we are all interconnected and interdependent. And just very quickly, an example, I posted this on Facebook. Let's also give prayers for the people in LA who are suffering so deeply with the fires there. Um, and the fact that there are firefighters coming up from Mexico and coming down from Canada, from South Africa, and perhaps other countries. I hear Australia is offering to bring firefighters. That particularly Americans understand how interdependent and interconnected we truly are. And that is actually um, our most basic instinct. When people are in need and hurting, we reach out and we take care, and that we never forget that. That firefighters are risking their lives, and not only are they risking their lives now in their own country, but they're actually going to a country where, on some levels, this country has been hostile to some of them. That they're still coming and they're sacrificing their own well-being and perhaps their health and their lives to support people in need, and to remember that is truly who we are. And I want to say a little bit about that as we enter into 2025, and then I want to ask you a question to set us up for that. Is And it's going to be one of those long little like circular journeys to get there. But some of you are now resilient enough to hold in there with me. Thank you for that. So I'm going to start by talking about how deeply moved I was watching the funeral of United States President Jimmy Carter, which was last week. Jimmy Carter, as many of you know, is one of my number one heroes. He, to me, is one of our greatest luminaries, up there with Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King Jr., and many others, Gandhi. He's too humble to have taken on that worldly status, I think. But if you don't know him and his life, please study it. He lived to be 100, and he lived a remarkable life. And this funeral did something really remarkable with me that I wasn't expecting. First of all, it was a healing and a nurturing of my soul. So if you need some soul nurturing, I would recommend you get on YouTube and find it, The Funeral of Jimmy Carter. and watch it from start to finish. It's so nourishing to see people in such a loving space honoring such a man of dignity and respect and service and compassion and generosity. It also did something interesting that you know, a lot of my work is about understanding the neurobiology and understanding not only the mental, but the emotional, the physical, the spiritual. And I found that interesting thing happening in my body. It was a visceral experience of like a readjusting and a rewiring that because this was such an event that was advocating for the highest levels of compassion and generosity and wisdom and service, which are the highest elements of the qualities of the heart, I was noticing that how much I have been drawn into 2025 and how social media and politics and our normal discourse has pulled me down to a frequency that is adversarial. And that, I mean, of course, not as bad as most. I do a lot of my practices to make sure I don't go there, as you know. But I did notice that I went through an energetic shift to break out of the collective um, atmosphere, I guess you could say, that we're all in. We just can't not be. We're in, like, you know, on the planet, we're in this atmosphere. And in terms of if we were on Mars, it would be a different atmosphere. So we're in a collective atmosphere that pulls us in, some of us more than others. And this watching this funeral helped pull me back out and see, like, it was like those like apocalyptic movies where everything is gray and cloudy, and then suddenly someone sees the sunshine and it's like, wow, I never saw sunshine before. Or it's been a decade since I've seen sunshine. And that's what was my experience was. And in a sense, it brought me back to myself in a way. And I think that's important. I think that's why a lot of people advocate to go into nature or listen to classical music or all of the different things that you can do to pull yourself out of the daily um, energies that we're in and open up and remind yourself of who you are in your highest, at your highest frequency. It's so healing. And I bring that up because what I want to talk about is thinking about 2025. One of the questions I have for you, which I'd like you to think about, is what it, what's one thing you might be concerned about with 2025, with what might happen on this planet? And what's one thing that you're excited about, that you have a good feeling about in terms of just generally 2025 and the world? And I'm going to ask you to do that from those, particularly those of you who are here who have been working with me for quite a long time, to try to practice doing it with a level of equanimity. And I'm going to say more about that, which is this practice about letting go of our initial response to labeling someone loved one, stranger, or adversary. And that in your sharing, there's no opposition in it. There's no good guys or bad guys. There's no right or wrong. There's no polarization in what you're saying, that it's just purely, you know, what is your wish for humanity in a sense, and what is your concern or hope. But I bring that up because I'm involved with a lot of discussions, and everyone's discussing their concerns about AI and about what AI might do. Many people are saying it's going to be brilliant. It's going to be exactly the next evolution in human beings. Other people are saying it's going to be our demise. It's going to take us down. And I have no set opinion on that. And I often say, just like with most things, it's not a car that kills someone. It's the person in the car who is not being responsible while they're driving. So I think, you know, there could be concerns about AI, but my concerns are about, as always, they are about human beings and what human beings will or won't do with a technology. Let's just look at nuclear, splitting the atom and creating nuclear energy. I bring this up because this is part of our practice of this idea of equanimity. Many of you have been doing this for a while, where we're in our meditation. I ask you to think of a loved one, and then a stranger, and then an adversary. And the idea is that we realize that those labels are not fixed. They're coming from our side. and not from the side of that person. Because, for instance, if you have a life partner or a husband or a wife, um, there was one time most likely that that person, maybe 30, 40 years ago, were a stranger to you, correct? So in a sense, this person is now loved one. At one point in your life, they were stranger. So they didn't change. Your label of them changed. And that is key to this practice, certainly for those who've been here for a while, to understand in this fierce compassion is that's what creates the separation, is our own mental construct. And so oftentimes when people share, they'll say, well, I didn't have any adversaries come up. And that could be true. And I would question that maybe you're not angry with someone in this moment, but how can family members be your adversary? Or how can it's not just the next president or the next minister or things like that, or people part of a political party. So you may say that you don't, but then on the subtler level, for those of you who have doing this practice for a while, I'd like you to look for a more subtle level, is to start noticing your reactions. For instance, if you are watching the news and someone who you would consider an adversary just in terms of their politics, if you see in the news that they did something where something happened that caused them pain or was a setback for them, if you feel pleasure in that, then you're not getting the practice. You can have a reaction, you can have but if you're feeling pleasure in that, then you're still stuck in the false labeling of adversary with that. Same thing if someone in your political party or on your side has a win, and you also feel a lot of pleasure in that. And there's nothing wrong with feeling the excitement and wanting to see your side succeed. It's a question of the neurobiological reaction you're having to it. I bring this up because I think this is going to be the key of us understanding how to stay sane in the world of AI. And why do I bring that up? Because going back to Jimmy Carter, there was a friend of mine who I respect very much, who has a high level of intelligence, of empathy, wisdom, and experience in so many areas. And she posted something on Facebook where it was the picture of Jimmy Carter in his coffin, and her caption was, "Why couldn't this be the incoming president?" So this woman of high intelligence, of empathy, who probably in a conversation would also get this idea of we have to work through our labels and our separation, still managed to go make the effort to post a coffin with a dead person in it and said, "Too bad it's not our incoming president." And that is the issue that I'm speaking to right now, is that what's the disconnect there? It satisfied for her some personal need to do that. And that's where AI and that's where the world system just is pulling us down into our less evolved parts of us, and where we're going to have to be hyper vigilant in this year and the years to come to make sure that the information we're seeing, that when we see the information, we're going to have an initial emotional response, but we're checking that emotional response because they understand, those who have designed AI and are using AI in the world system, they understand our human neurobiology. That's been studied since, if not the 50s, maybe before, but certainly since the 50s. The advertising world, particularly in America, has studied neurobiology. That's how they can convince people to buy a product, is they know how to play with our neurobiology, our emotional field, our reactive self, the parts of us that create habituation, habits, desires. They know how to tap into that and communicate with us there. That's why, and I hope this doesn't sound judgmental, that's why there are still people who know that smoking cigarettes can cause the end of your life are still smoking. That's why people who know that our food is blasted with sugars are still buying those foods, knowing it's breaking down our physical body, et cetera, because they know how to play with our neurobiology. And I think that's the key for us moving forward in a world where we won't know if a picture is real or created by AI. We won't know if the information we're getting is true or if it's fabricated. The only way we're going to know is if we do proper investigation. We won't do that proper investigation if, when we see that information, we have a neurobiological reaction of pleasure or pain to that information or picture, and leave it at that. Then the AI and those creating these images and this information basically is determining our reality. I don't want to make it spooky. I'm just trying to speak it for what it is. And that's where we have power. And you know that I've said for many years now, we may not have power today to create world peace or overcome hunger or change the political system, but where we always have power is cultivating resilience, keeping our nervous systems regulated, and how we react to external stressors. That is key. We may not have power to control the external stressors that are coming into our lives, but where we always have power is in how we respond to those stressors. That's our gift for having the kind of brain that we have as a human. To know that we're going to have a reptilian response, and yay that we have that, because it keeps us safe and alive and thriving. We have a mammalian brain, which helps us remember things and lump information together to have an emotional reaction to it. And we have a prefrontal cortex, which helps us then reason all of those processes so we make the most informed decision from our highest selves. And what I discussed last time, if you remember, is my belief that the heart is the fourth part in the evolutionary process of the brain, that there are those who believe this biologically, that those of us like Jimmy Carter, like Gandhi, like our great teachers, like Jesus and Mohammed and Buddha, that these beings have managed to integrate the fourth part of their brain, the heart, into the other three parts of their brains, and can remain in that state of embodied compassion and wisdom. And we're doing our best. We get there sometimes, we get into the heart, but then enculturation pulls us back, right? A phone call from my mother or a social media post or something. It pulls us right back into that reptilian fight, flight, freeze response. And so the, where we always have power is in how we respond to the stimulus that's around us. And I believe that's going to be the key of us finding some light and a way through the complexities and fears and doubts around AI and mis and disinformation. And it all comes back to the resilient practice we're doing and the practice we're doing in cultivating fierce compassion and resilience. When we stay resilient, we can meet challenges in a more effective way without us getting dysregulated. We can keep our nervous systems more regulated so we're not in that fight, flight, freeze response where we're being oppositional and where we're easily manipulated, actually. And we're cultivating the fierce compassion on a deeper level now of not only noticing how we label people, but also noticing the reactions that come with that. And I borrow this from Buddhist philosophy, that what causes our suffering is this idea that we label people and objects loved one, which creates a pleasure experience. We label people and objects as adversary or bad, which creates a pain reaction or a fight reaction or an anger reaction. And we are neutral to things that aren't necessarily important to us in that moment or strangers. And that's what keeps us in the stormy sea of our hearts, is we're constantly being pulled into the pleasure, the pain, and the neutrality, and the indifference, I would say, indifference more than neutrality. A lot of people have suffered in the world for other people's indifference, if you know what, if you understand what I'm saying. And this practice is not only to help us let go of the labels of stranger, adversary, and loved one, it's also to help us to calm those stormy seas of pleasure, indifference, and pain and aversion. So that when we do see a post, again, that we can train ourselves in that first moment to, we can have an emotional reaction because we're human, we have neurobiology, but very quickly do the practice, feet on the ground, focus in my center, connect with my heart, take some deep breaths and say, okay, here's my emotional reaction. I'm going to bring myself back to regulation. Then I'm going to activate the reasoning brain and do some investigation. Is this information true or not? And if I have doubts, I have to investigate. That's going to be the key. Does anyone have any thoughts on this or comments? Cindy?
Yeah, a friend had posted something on the anniversary of the blizzard of 78, which was a big deal in the northeastern United States. So he's got this picture and these walls of snow going up. And I pinged back and I'm like, this looks kind of like AI layered on another stack in here. And he's like, oh no, no, it was actually the way I remember it from my childhood. The streets looked like this. And then I looked up, I had looked up, I think after that, even how many inches of snow the Boston area got and where my parents lived in Warwick, Rhode Island. And the total looked really low because my parents had 6 feet of snow in their front yard 10 days later. And it said AI came back with 27 inches. It's like, well, not in this spot, no. So something as simple as that, just that I might not go and look deeper, but I'm disturbed by the fact that I've been researching something and it's harder to get a non-AI generated response when I go searching the web. So that really does bother me. And I tend to dig down into source information like National Institute for Health or whatever, where
Yeah.
they say, we're not endorsing or whatever anything posted here, but they acknowledge the source and the research and whatever. So it just gets harder and harder. But I thank you for the practice because it gets easier for me to talk to people I disagree with without getting so sucked into the emotional overload of it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. That's so beautiful. And I know you have a very strong practice, so I appreciate hearing your feedback on that. However, and not however, I want to just add to that. You gave a perfect example. First of all, that's all I've been talking about, because here in DC, we had 10 inches of snow. And people, and this is real life. Everywhere I was, I would say this. People would call and we were saying, Joe, I hear you have a snowstorm. And I'm like, it's not a storm, it's snowing and it's 10 inches. I remember in that winter of 77, 78, I remember I walked with no, I didn't walk with no shoes, but I do remember that's snow, that's a storm that this, it's all relative. And but there's something interesting in what you said. I hope I remember exactly what you said. This is the key of it, Cindy, is that what you did, you investigated, which I would is what I'm advocating for, and that person's response was, oh no, that's how I remember it. And they can't hear that they're missing one of the important teachings that I give in fierce civility and respectful confrontation is my truth does not equal the truth. is that they actually named what the issue is. That's how they remember it, which doesn't mean that that's the way it was. Because what I've been saying is that I remember I was 12 years old or something, and we never got off from school for snow days. I laugh about it, but I literally was walking, my little 12-year-old body was walking in drifts of snow that was this high to go to school. So for me, yeah, in that moment, I would see it the same way as that person. It was enormous. And that's another key to it, is to remember that and using critical thinking and independent critical thinking is remembering my truth does not equal that truth. And that if that person could have said, I'm sharing this photo because that's is what it felt like for me in that winter. That's true. So thank you. I appreciate that. It's great. Anyone else?
What came to mind when you were speaking um, about the practice, and I may have brought this up before about the quote from Maharishi, establish in being, perform action. And that's such a powerful mantra for me to use all those things to establish myself in my self-regulation, breathing, being in compassion and empathy, and then moving out into the world in whatever way that is.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the practice so much for helping me really get that quote.
Yeah. Thanks. Thank you.
It also seems to slow things down, like just literally feeling your feet on the ground, focusing on the center, taking a deep breath, like creates space to have more space to regulate and to kind of move back into thinking mind or experiencing what's actually happening instead of getting caught in the swirl that kind of condenses things. So it feels like a space making exercise too, where you've got like a bit more capacity to actually take in and move with what's happening.
Yes. And what I was saying earlier is that's I'm offering that as our practice for 2025 and moving forward. That this is another level of what the world's circumstances are asking of us. And
Mm-hmm.
and to not see that as a struggle or something horrible, but to see it more as like, wow, thank you for the opportunity to enhance my practice and perfect it and move towards a deeper level of mastery of my practice, of your practice, of our practice.
What
Barbara?
what you've raised though, Joe, I've got a background and a master's in library science and did a lot of writing and publishing on question handling. You are basically raising the issue of verification of information and the investment that it's going to take us to be sure that we're getting the correct information and how many people are going to be willing to do that. Even I, at some point, don't have the time, depending on what the issue is. So, and when you gave the example of the car crash being the fault of the driver, what immediately came to mind was the driverless cars. So there you have the kind of construct that you offered us is now changed by the AI experience and then amplified by the need to do all the homework to verify whether what you're hearing and reading is correct. How are we going to do that?
We have to share information with each other and teach each other. I think it's key. It's I want to what I'm hoping to advocate for in these sessions moving forward in 2025 is to see where do we have power? right? There are a lot of people who are making decisions for us. And at this moment, I don't have a lot of influence to make decisions. And unfortunately, and this is a key point in the Fierce Ability book, is that a lot of the choices that are being made is because of a world system that is technologically overfed and spiritually malnourished. And you brought up a good example of that, is that people, when scientists and engineers and innovators are coming up with brilliant inventions about how to create a system where human beings are no longer needed for production, from a technologically overfed and spiritually malnourished point of view, it's very clever and very efficient, and it makes a lot of sense. But from the perspective of the fact that it means there's going to be millions and millions, if not billions, of people out of work because they won't be needed for those jobs anymore, and then how do you feed those people? That's what we're not talking about. And that's because, at least as I would say, because those who are making the decisions are caught up in a system that's technologically overfed and spiritually malnourished. So it's up to us, for those who are cultivating our spiritual nourishment, so that we're more in balance, to empower ourselves to find our voice and to encourage, and then to create alliances with those who share similar values. The more alliances we create internationally, like with this venue, with the Global Heart Practice and gathering, the stronger we become. And then we bring in a voice. And I don't, it may sound very Pollyanna, which is that means very how would you translate that into Dutch? Pollyanna, kind of a dream, kind of like a dream, wishful thinking. And it is wishful thinking, because that's where our greatest innovations have come from. Have started with wishes, and with in my life, my whole life, I can trace back to the direction my life and where I've come and where I'm going has been one day just coming up with a crazy idea, saying, what if I did this? And then before I know I'm doing it, and it shifts the whole course of my life. And I'm sure you can trace that in moments in your life as well. It's really not that hard to to just remember that there's power in that. So Barbara, I hear what you're speaking to, and I think that it just requires each one of us, we have to be vigilant this year. And vigilant doesn't mean that we need to be in a state of panic or animosity. We need to be present. We need to be clear. We need to be connected. And that in itself will create a field and a momentum if we stay connected and we stay in that state. And who knows what's going to come out of that? There might be a whole new movement in library science or information gathering and validation that hasn't been even invented yet. Who knows? That's the exciting thing about a time that is so in our face at the moment, that feels so contracted and in some ways hopeless, is that it's the proper pressure cooker and circumstances for what's being born to have a quick burst of growth. And I think 2025, 2026, personally, I think, I don't know if I can't back it up with facts, but my sense is that that's what we're in for. Is we're in, the pressure cooker is going to continue to get more pressured and it's going to create the circumstances for a burst of evolution, a burst of innovation that is going to be in alignment with values that have an equal balance of technological and spiritual nourishment. So let's do our practice. Let's take and I bring this up to just say, one thing that I want to be fiercer in is asking all of you to consider, what's your commitment to this community, and and to consider that the more you show up, the more you help feed a field to have more lasting impact. So my invitation to you is, you know that this is happening every second Tuesday of the month at this time. Please put it in your calendars. And for the 1 hour a month that this happens, to really hold that space, protect that space, and show up. I've never said it like that before, but I think that's part of what I'm switching into for 2025, 2026 is show up and to and support the community, support yourself and one another, and to really think and be fiercer in who you can invite. And that, what if you made it a practice for yourself that every month you brought someone different? You just made it a monthly practice to try to come up with someone you can invite. And if you don't, you don't. But that's the invitation, is to be thinking, how can we all take this practice deeper and what we've cultivated these last 7 or 8 years to meet the challenges and the opportunities of this time. Okay, with that, coming into a posture where you can cultivate resilience, presence, awareness, balance, and flow. So sitting in a way where your spine is straight without being rigid. Tucking in your chin a little bit so you can extend that extension all the way up through the top of your head, relaxing your jaw, your shoulders, your belly. Our sit. Bringing your focus to your center and your lower belly, the width of 3 fingers below your navel, or a third of the way into the body from the front of the body. Center of gravity, impulse, personal power, awareness. From your center, become aware of your contact points, the parts of your body that are connecting with what you're sitting on and the ground. Using your center to cultivate awareness. How can we learn to not think our reality or feel our reality, but become aware of our reality, perceive our reality? From your center, perceiving your contact points, feeling the contact points making connection with what's below you. Using that as a way to drop in and let yourself be held. And cultivating if possible, almost a moment-to-moment relationship with the earth. It's always below you and is always supporting you. Unless you're in a space station, the earth is always supporting you. Cultivating more presence in this moment, beginning with self. So from your center, become aware of your physical body. Just listen, perceive. What information? This is how you gain access to a deeper communication and understanding of the vocabulary with your neurobiology. So listen, what is the physical body speaking to you in this moment? From your center, become aware of your emotional body. From, again, understanding your neurobiology. What's your emotional body saying to you in this moment? Listen without judgment. From your center, become aware of your mental body, your thoughts. How are your thoughts in this moment? Maintaining connection with your core, your place of awareness and personal power. Now bring awareness to your heart, to the middle of your chest, where your heart power resides. Compassion, wisdom, respect. And from your center and from your heart, connecting with that part of you which connects with something larger than yourself. And as you connect with that part of you, opening up to an awareness of just questioning, what is your connection in this moment to something larger than yourself? And how do you experience that? And with your connection with Mother Earth beneath you and that which is larger than yourself in your heart and your center, allow that to radiate out from your heart and your center to fill your own personal space, out to the edges of your own personal boundaries, in all directions, behind you, to the sides of you, above you, in front of you. And with this awareness of self, take a full breath in. Maintaining your connection with self, and now from your center and from your heart, increasing your capacity of awareness, becoming aware of your surroundings. Keeping your eyes closed, see how much you can perceive from your heart and your center in all directions in your surroundings. What information are you gathering? And with this awareness of self and surroundings, take a full breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. And expanding your capacity of awareness from your heart and your center. So now from your heart and your center, becoming aware of those in this meditation circle. Those throughout North America and throughout Europe and other parts of the world who are connecting with us in this moment. Breathing through from your heart space, breathing through your labels about who they are based on nationality, gender, age, whatever might be coming up. Resonating from the heart and from your personal power with those in this meditation circle. Noticing how that impacts you. And with that awareness from your center and from your heart, take a full breath in. And with this awareness of self's surroundings and those in this meditation circle, now expanding your awareness from your center and from your heart, becoming aware of all human beings, beginning with those human beings you would label loved ones. Who arises in your heart? How many can you hold in your heart right now? And again, just considering the neurobiology that gets activated when you are engaging with loved ones. Is there attachment? Does it activate pleasure? Does it activate a sense of safety? There's no right answer and there's no good answer. It's simply training yourself to continuously be aware of, in any contact connection you have, how it activates the neurobiology. And getting to and see, once you are feeling those things, how you can still stay connected with yourself, connected with them, resonating from your heart and your core, connecting with their heart and their core. And from your center and from your heart, becoming aware of those human beings you would label stranger. And how many strangers can you hold in your heart at this moment? What faces do you see, or groups of people, countries, regions, neighbors that you don't know, people you see in the news or newspapers? And noticing what activates within you in terms of your neurobiology, a certain level of indifference, of Is it maybe harder to connect with them because you don't have an emotional connection with them? Just notice. What would it take to cut through that indifference and to really hold them in your heart and in your personal power and resonating with their heart and their personal power? Allowing energy to flow and emotions to flow. And from your center and from your heart, become aware of those you would label adversary. And be honest, be courageous in what that means for you. Who arises in your heart? How many adversaries can you hold in your heart at this moment? And noticing how it activates your neurobiology. Does it create aversion? Fear? Does it shut down your heart? Again, not good or bad, not right or wrong, simply a practice of observing and making adjustments. And what would it take to make sure you're safe in this moment as you engage with these adversaries and try to find some heart resonance with your heart and their heart, your personal power and their personal power. Allowing energy to flow and emotions to flow. And now considering as you engage with all human beings, those that you're holding in your heart, the loved ones that came up in your heart, the strangers and the adversaries, imagining that you can still acknowledge that, of course, there are differences and your relationship with them are different. But is it possible to hold the same level of heart resonance with every single one of them equally? There's no right answer, there's no wrong answer. It's simply a practice. And imagine that you do get to that point and that every single person you're holding in your heart right now, loved one, stranger, and adversary, are influenced and impacted by it, and opens their heart. And just feel that moment of a blossoming of the hearts of those you're engaging with, of all human beings. If it's possible for you to do that, if it's possible for 2 or 3 other people you know, then it's possible for everyone to have that experience. And imagine the impact that that would have if human beings could remain in that heart resonance for all of the creatures on this planet and for the planet itself. And let's hold that as an image and a focus and a hope for 2025. Your felt experience of it now, with this awareness, with this visual, or with this vision that you have. Take a nice deep breath to anchor it. And with that open-heartedness, allowing all of those open-hearted human beings flow into your heart as you bring your focus back and awareness back to those in this meditation circle with gratitude and respect. And those in this meditation circle flow into your heart as you bring your awareness back to your surroundings, anchoring this in your moment to moment and day to day. Grateful for your surroundings, allowing your surroundings to flow into your heart as you bring this back to yourself. Where it starts and where it ends. And as a way to close, allow the sensations and the benefits of this practice to flow into every cell of your body, charging and igniting all the cells in your body, flowing into in a loving and sweet way into your organs to nurture and heal. flowing into your neurobiology and your nervous system as a way to remember this, to create new muscle memory. And now, as a way to close this practice, take a deep, deep final breath. When you're ready, open your eyes and look around the room, stretch a little bit, shake a little bit. So we started with our motivation. We had a little bit of dialogue about it. We did our practice, and now let's take a few minutes to reflect on how is this practice or anything else that came up for you that you might want to add. Mika, yeah.
I like to share. It was very hard today to be in the practice, to feel the energy of the whole world. And just before we started the practice, I realized that sometimes I want to ignore some things that are happening. Too much that want an action from me. And I don't want to react on that impulse I need to react on. Maybe I say it not in the right way, but...
Nederlands? Zeg het in het Nederlands.
Gewoon te veel prikkels waar ik op zou moeten reageren.
But there's too much stimulus where I feel like I have to react to. But why do you feel like you have to react to?
Well, when Cindy mentioned the snow and the height of the snow, it is another example. But there was a picture of Holland. Holland is as flat as such a line of snow. And there were fields of tulips, and there were mountains behind the tulips. Oh, I thought, how big is Holland since this day? And I knew it's a fake. It's a fake picture. And I wanted to put it on, I think it was Facebook. And then I thought, does I have to correct this? Now, another person corrected already, so I doesn't have to do it. But there are a whole lot of impulses that I think, oh, that's not... I want to react, but I don't want to be stimulated by stupid subjects.
Yeah. I get that, and we're all going to be faced with that because it's not going to stop.
No.
But the suggestion I would give is to use discernment, onderscheidingsvermogen.
Mm-hmm.
To just use discernment and to be able to say you can't do it all, but choosing not to do something is different from just not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Choosing not to do something is different from just not doing it, because again, this whole practice is about awareness.
Yeah. So when we did a practice and you mentioned the whole world, I thought, no, not today. Too much. Too much. Maybe
However,
too much.
That's wisdom and compassion for yourself. That's self-compassion. Kelly, how do you say that? Zelfmededogen.
Zelfmededogen.
Oh, great. Whoa.
That's it for my Dutch, but it's a good one.
Oh, the best word you can know. Yes.
Zelfmededogen. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
Okay, anyone else?
I've been connecting with strangers in a very interesting way. The Washington Post writes an obituary every day for somebody to celebrate their life. And it is obviously not being tinkered with because the people who are tinkering don't care about the dead. But I am getting that wonderful sense of the person and the accomplishment and it fills me, it really does. It's a wonderful antidote. So if there is such in the Netherlands, I recommend it, and anybody who's got that opportunity, it is extraordinary.
Yes.
It's awesome.
Thank you. You always share beautiful wisdom and tips for us, Barbara. Thank you. Okay. Well, there may be more. Feel free to get in touch. There are a couple. Well, there are a couple of announcements. Well, one big announcement is I'm leaving DC this month, and I'm going to be in Europe for a while. My book has been translated into Italian. If you know people who speak Italian, tell them to buy my book, Fear Civility. I don't have the link, but I'm going to put some links here, but you can figure out how to do that. I'm very excited about that. I'm going to be doing events in Italy, et cetera, and a lot of big changes. I'm going to just put this in the chat so you see it. There's signing up for our newsletter. If you haven't done that, please do. There's a link to get in touch with me, and at joeweston.com, you can see our events. There's an events page where you can also let people know about this event, that it's on there. And there's a link for donations, and I'm going to be a little fiercer in that as well in terms of supporting this community. Cindy could speak to this, and those of you who understand certainly Buddhist practice is that there's something about practicing generosity. And I don't ask for any money for this, and I don't, and I'm not going to force you to, but just to keep in mind as a way to support this, support me, and support the energy of this, is every once in a while to consider sending a donation. Barbara's been very generous in the past, and I'm very grateful for that. And that the practice is that even if you give $5 or €5, you're still practicing generosity. It's still something. And it becomes a reciprocation of energy and of intention. So I'm offering that. The link is there. Again, no obligation, but I'm just offering that becomes maybe part of the practice as well, is to think about every once in a while to do that. I think that's it. I would like you to start thinking about, again, for yourself to determine what is one thing you're concerned about and what's one thing you're hopeful for this year, without any polarization and simply just from a place of equanimity. And we will continue to meet. And as always, you can always get in touch if you have questions. And there was something else I wanted to say about that. I'm thinking of maybe, because I put out a series of newsletters on the 7 practices for lasting peace, and I'm thinking of maybe actually using the global heart practice to go through those 7 practices. I'm thinking about every month focusing on one theme. We'll have to see, unless something comes up. And if you have topics that you want to discuss, or if you have any suggestions on how you'd like to see the format, if it's, or adjust the format or try out, again, get in touch. I'm always open to listening and hearing. All right, so let's dedicate this. May the efforts that we've generated, may that flow easily to those who are going to be living through 2025, 2026, which is all of us in a sense, many of us. May we really understand from a visceral experience, a sense of inner peace, a sense of staying connected to ourselves and holding each and every one of us in our highest. May some of the energy go to all of the people who are now focused on LA, whether they are struggling with no home, having lost everything, worried about their life, or are there to help to put out the fire. May they all be well, and may they prosper. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, and see you again in a month.
Good travels, Joe.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.